what are your thoughts on Joe Biden dropping out of the presidential race and the likelihood of Kamala Harris becoming the new Democratic nominee?
Thanks so much for the question. Yeah, first off, I want to just underline that President Biden has been, as many have said, probably one of the most pro-worker presidents in a generation. One of the first to show up at a picket line to support working people, but also looking at his policies, really committed to making sure any investments at the federal level are tied to good jobs. He's been very clear to say union jobs and good wages, something that we also fought for. In the first of its kind in Canada, we've got tax credits that Charlie Angus and our team were a big part of fighting for, tax credits that are directly tied to good wages, prevailing wages, tied to good jobs and apprenticeships. That's something the New Democrats believe. We don't believe in giving away blank checks to big corporations like conservatives, like Harper did, for those corporations to take that money, shut down shop, and leave the country. We think that's absolutely wrong. We need ironclad guarantees that any money we invest goes to workers. And that's something that President Biden did. I think it's really remarkable. We also share values around taking on corporate greed. He's one of the only presidents I've ever heard of that's really focused on corporate greed being a big problem, that corporations are ripping off people. We agree with that. We haven't seen Justin Trudeau say that ever. And we know with guaranteed certainty that Pierre Poilievre will never take on corporate greed. Those are his buddies. Those are the folks he wants to defend. So we share that. We believe in that. And he's committed to lowering the price of insulin. We've actually forced the government to make diabetes medication free across this country, as well as devices and free birth control. So we're committed to making life better for people. And I want to salute President Biden for his great work. And he made a decision that was in the best interest in his belief for the country. And I acknowledge that's a tough decision to make. And the idea of a Kamala Harris presidency is incredible. I'm a really proud dad of 2 daughters. Actually, Charlie's also a proud dad of daughters. And the idea of having the first ever female president of the United States, for my kids, my daughters to grow up seeing or to know that there was a racialized Black woman who was the president of one of the most powerful countries in the world, I can't even begin to imagine what that would be like in terms of inspiration. It would make my daughters feel like they could do anything to see that. On top of that, we know that Vice President Kamala Harris is someone that has fought against the big banks, taken the side of working people, and has showed a real commitment to values that we share, values of defending everyday folks. As a former attorney general, she's really committed to that work. And so it's an exciting opportunity. And I think the people of the United States make the decision that's in their best interest, someone that's going to fight for working people.
I know you said you welcome, Kamala Harris and her possible run as president. Are there any policies that she has that you know of that worry you compared to Joe Biden right now?
There aren't any policies that I'm aware of. I just know of her work, and one of the things I think is notable is the fact that she took on big banks, and we know that powerful big banks are first hard to take on and have really taken advantage of people in a lot of ways. In Canada, people feel the same way. And the fact that she was prepared to do that and was able to do that is something that's quite notable, that she had the courage to take on the powerful to defend the people. And it's something that I noticed that I think that's the job of a good leader, and that's the job of politics, is to take on the powerful to defend people. But when we see conservatives, it's the opposite. Their job, they seem like to help out the powerful. They help out their corporate buddies. They help out their billionaire friends. That's who they seem to be in it for. We've seen that with Doug Ford here in Ontario, helping out his millionaire, multi-millionaire developer buddies, his billionaire developer buddies. That's what conservatives do. And to me, it's the opposite of politics. Politics should be about defending everyday people, working class people. And conservatives seem to think it's all about taking on working class people and helping out their billionaire buddies. So that's one thing about Vice President Kamala Harris that I really respect, the fact that she took on the big banks.
Earlier, you said you think it might be easier with President Harris. I'm just wondering why you say that when you consider in the United States, even under President Biden, they've been leaning more towards a protectionist type of policy, even versus Canada.
I think that's why the number one priority for a Canadian Prime Minister has to be always fighting for Canadian jobs. That's job number one. Fighting for our jobs, fighting for Canadian interests. That's going to be my number one job as Prime Minister. But we've seen the difference between Republicans and Democrats, or particularly with Trump, who's a bully. He put in aggressive, frankly, nonsensical tariffs on Canadian goods. and was not very reasonable, not someone that was able to have discussions with, and really, frankly, acted like a bully. We did not see the same thing with President Biden, someone that was willing to engage in conversation, acknowledge that our economies are so connected that there needed to be some exemptions around some of their focus on manufacturing in America, and acknowledge the governors who raised those concerns and said, you know what, a lot of our products are processed on both sides of the border. So putting on heavy tariffs on Canadian products, Canadian steel, for example, is actually going to hurt manufacturers in America as well. So having that openness and willingness to communicate and discuss the realities is something we noticed with President Biden, and we did not see that with President Trump. But either way, my focus as a future prime minister is to defend the interests of Canadian workers and Canadian jobs, and that's always going to be the job of a prime minister in Canada.